Imagine digging through your old coin jar and finding a dime that could be worth more than your monthly grocery bill. Sound impossible? Well, collectors across America are discovering that certain 1983 Roosevelt dimes are commanding prices that'll make you look at pocket change completely differently. Most people toss these dimes into tip jars or left them in car cup holders. Big mistake. Here's what happened in 1983 that created one of the most interesting stories in modern American numismatics. The Reagan administration was in full swing. The economy was recovering, and the U.S. Mint was quietly producing millions of Roosevelt dimes. But buried within those massive production runs were coins that would eventually become the stuff of collector legends. You see, 1983 wasn't just another year for American coinage. It marked a pivotal moment when mint errors and production variations created opportunities that sharp-eyed collectors are still capitalizing on today. Let's step back to 1983 for a moment. Picture this. Ronald Reagan's economic policies were taking hold. MTV was changing how America consumed entertainment, and the U.S. Mint was operating at peak efficiency to meet the nation's growing demand for circulating currency. The Philadelphia and Denver mints were working overtime that year, striking Roosevelt dimes by the millions. The Philadelphia facility alone produced over 647 million dimes in 1983, while Denver added another 730 million to the mix. With numbers like these, you'd think every 1983 dime would be common as dirt. You'd be wrong. Here's where it gets fascinating. Within those massive production runs, mint workers occasionally made mistakes. Dies were down differently. Planchets, that's the blank metal disc before it becomes a coin, sometimes had imperfections. And when you're talking about nearly 1.4 billion coins, even a tiny error rate creates thousands of valuable mistakes. The 1983 Roosevelt dime features the familiar design we've known since 1946. Franklin D. Roosevelt's left-facing profile dominates the obverse, with Liberty arcing above his head and In God We Trust positioned to his left. The mint mark, either P for Philadelphia or D for Denver, sits just above the date on the obverse. But here's what most people don't realize. It's not the design that makes certain 1983 dimes valuable. It's what went wrong during production. Now, before you rush to your change jar, let me explain exactly what makes a 1983 dime worth your attention. The most sought-after 1983 Roosevelt dimes fall into several error categories. We're talking about double die obverse, where the striking process created a slight doubling effect on Roosevelt's features or the lettering. These aren't dramatic errors. You'll need a magnifying glass to spot them. But to collectors, they're pure gold. Then there are the off-center strikes. Imagine the planchet wasn't perfectly aligned when the dies came down. The result? A dime where the design is shifted, creating a crescent of blank metal on one side. Depending on how far off-center the strike is, these can be worth anywhere from $50 to several hundred. Clip planchets represent another category entirely. These occur when the metal strip being fed into the blanking press overlaps, creating a coin that's missing a portion of its edge. It looks like someone took a bite out of your dime, and collectors absolutely love them. But here's the variety that really gets collectors excited. The 1983 P. Roosevelt dime with a missing mint mark. Stay with me here because this gets technical, but it's worth understanding. In 1983, the Philadelphia Mint was supposed to include a P mint mark on all their dimes. This was part of a broader initiative to mark all U.S. coins with their mint of origin. However, some dies were prepared incorrectly, and a small number of 1,983 dimes were struck without any mint mark at all. These no mint mark varieties can sell for anywhere from $200 to over $1,000, depending on their condition and the specific characteristics of the error. So how do you spot one of these valuable 1983 dimes? First, grab a good magnifying glass. We're talking about details that you simply can't see with the naked eye. Check the area just above the date on the obverse side. If you see a P or D, you're looking at a normal circulation strike. But if that space is blank and the coin appears to be in decent condition, you might have something special. For double die varieties, Examine Roosevelt's facial features closely. Look for any doubling in his hair, the outline of his jaw, or in the letters of Liberty. The doubling won't be dramatic. Think subtle shadow effects rather than obvious overlapping. Off-center strikes are much easier to identify. You'll see a crescent of blank metal somewhere around the coin's edge, and the design will appear shifted in the opposite direction. Here's where things get really interesting from an investment standpoint. A regular 1983 Roosevelt dime in circulated condition, it's worth exactly 10 cents. But start adding errors into the mix, and the math changes dramatically. Recent auction results show 1983 Pinot Mint marked dime selling for $300 to $800, depending on their grade. That's a 3,000% to 8,000% return on a 10-cent investment. Not bad for something you might find in your couch cushions. Double die varieties typically bring $100 to $400, while significant off-center strikes can command $200 to $600. Even minor mint errors on 1983 dimes often sell for $25 to $75, which still represents a solid return for eagle-eyed collectors. The beauty of hunting 1983 Roosevelt dimes lies in their accessibility. Unlike rare date coins that disappeared from circulation decades ago, error varieties from 1983 are still turning up in everyday transactions. Bank rolls, cash register drawers, and those forgotten coin jars and kitchen drawers continue yielding discoveries. Professional coin graders have certified hundreds of 1983 error dimes, but experts estimate that thousands more remain unidentified in circulation or private collections. The 1983 Roosevelt dime proves that valuable coins don't always come from the distant past. Sometimes they're hiding in plain sight, waiting for someone knowledgeable enough to recognize their worth. But if you think the 1983 dime has some interesting stories to tell, wait until you hear about what happened 9 years earlier with the 1974 Roosevelt dime. We're talking about a minting situation so unusual that it created one of the most controversial and valuable error coins in modern American history. And the collector who first discovered it thought he was losing his mind. While you were celebrating the end of the 1980s and wondering what the new decade would bring, the U.S. Mint was quietly creating what would become one of the most undervalued opportunities in modern American coinage. The year was 1990, and collectors today are still discovering just how special these dimes really are. Here's something that'll surprise you. Recent auction data shows that premium 1990 dimes have been outperforming many classic rarities in terms of percentage gains. We're talking about coins that were ignored for decades, suddenly commanding attention from serious collectors who understand what they're looking at. Every collector should know this story. In 1990, the U.S. Mint was operating under pressures that most people never realized existed. The Cold War was ending, the economy was shifting, and internally, minting procedures were undergoing some of the most significant changes since the 1960s. What happened that year created a perfect storm for today's collectors. Production decisions, equipment modifications, and quality control adjustments combined to produce dimes that are fundamentally different from what came before and what would come after. Think about it this way. If you wanted to pinpoint the exact moment when modern coin production truly began, 1990 would be that year. The Roosevelt dimes from this year represent the last of one era and the first of another. The Philadelphia Mint's 1990 production run tells a fascinating story that most collectors are just beginning to appreciate. With a mintage of approximately 1.03 billion dimes, significantly lower than many surrounding years, the numbers alone should have caught collectors' attention decades ago. But here's what really matters. The strike characteristics from Philadelphia's 1990 production are exceptional. Equipment upgrades implemented that year resulted in dies that produced remarkably sharp, well-defined coins. When you examine a high-grade 1990 Philadelphia dime under magnification, you'll see details in Roosevelt's portrait that are noticeably crisper than most other years from the period. The technical improvements show up most dramatically in the reverse design. The torch flame details, those intricate lines that often appear soft or mushy on Roosevelt dimes, are razor-sharp on well-preserved 1990 examples. The olive branch and oak branch details display a three-dimensional quality that's genuinely impressive. Here's something even advanced collectors miss. The rim beading on 1990 Philadelphia dimes is unusually consistent and well-defined. This might sound like a minor technical detail, but it's exactly these kinds of production refinements that create long-term collecting value. Now, let's talk about something really special, the 1990 D dime. With that little d mint mark above the date, these coins represent one of the most overlooked opportunities in the entire Roosevelt series. The Denver Mint's 1990 production was even smaller than Philadelphia's, just over 839 million pieces. That's not just a smaller mintage. It's a significantly smaller mintage that puts the 1990D in genuinely scarce territory for a modern coin. But the real story isn't just about numbers. The Denver Mint's 1990 operation produced dimes with surface quality characteristics that are genuinely distinctive. Many examples display what collectors call cartwheel luster, that rolling, silky sheen that appears when you rotate a mint state coin under proper lighting. Professional graders have noted that 1990 D dimes often exhibit exceptional eye appeal when preserved in top condition. The combination of sharp strikes, clean planchet preparation, and superior surface finish creates coins that simply look better than most modern issues. Here's where the 1990 dime story gets really interesting for serious collectors. While we're focusing on circulation strikes, it's impossible to discuss 1990 dimes without mentioning one of modern numismatics' most significant rarities, the 1990 No-S proof dime. This isn't just collector folklore. This is documented numismatic history. A small number of 1,990 proof dimes were accidentally struck without the S mint mark that should appear on all San Francisco proof production. These coins are among the most valuable modern U.S. rarities, with examples selling for six-figure amounts. Why mention this in a discussion of circulation strikes? Because it demonstrates that 1990 was a year when unusual things were happening at multiple mints. The same attention to technical detail and procedural changes that created the No-S proof variety also influenced the quality and characteristics of regular production coins. For years, the 1990 dime was essentially invisible to most collectors. Type collectors would pick up any decent example to fill the spot in their albums. Series collectors treated it as just another common date. The market barely noticed these coins existed. That's changing rapidly. Over the past 5 years, auction results for premium 1990 dimes have shown consistent strength. MS 67 examples that might have sold for modest premiums a decade ago are now commanding serious attention from quality-conscious collectors. The Philadelphia Coin and Collectible Show, one of the country's premier numismatic events, regularly features 1990 dimes and high-grade holders as examples of modern sleepers, coins that offer genuine rarity in top condition without the premium prices of classic key dates. Here's something that'll open your eyes. Check the population reports from major grading services for 1990 dimes in MS 67 and higher grades. The numbers are surprisingly small, especially when you consider how many collectors have been submitting modern coins for grading over the past 2 decades. PCGS and NGC combined have graded thousands of 1990 dimes over the years, but the distribution is heavily weighted toward lower mint state grades. MS 64 and MS 65 examples are available, but MS 67 and MS 68 pieces represent genuine condition rarities. This population data reflects a fundamental reality. While millions of 1990 dimes were produced, very few survived in truly premium condition. Most went into circulation immediately, and those that were saved often suffered from less than ideal storage conditions. Smart collectors are recognizing that 1990 dimes offer something increasingly rare in modern numismatics: genuine scarcity without artificial manipulation. These aren't coins being promoted through marketing campaigns or temporary speculation. They're simply good coins that have been overlooked by the broader collecting community. The fundamentals are solid across every metric that serious collectors consider important. Low mintages relative to surrounding years. exceptional technical quality, and high grades, growing recognition among knowledgeable collectors, reasonable current pricing that reflects genuine scarcity rather than speculative premiums. For collectors building Roosevelt dime sets, the 1990 offers the satisfaction of owning something genuinely scarce without requiring the enormous financial commitment of classic key dates like the 1916 D Mercury dime or 1942 1 Mercury overdate. From a pure investment standpoint, 1990 dimes check all the right boxes. They represent a specific point in minting history when technical improvements created superior coin quality. They exist in limited numbers in top preservation grades, and they're priced at levels that reflect actual scarcity rather than speculation or hype. The coin market has shown repeatedly that quality modern issues with genuine rarity characteristics tend to appreciate steadily over time. The 1990 dime fits this profile perfectly. It's not a get-rich-quick speculation, but rather a solid addition to any serious collection focused on long-term value. Looking ahead, several factors suggest continued strength for premium 1990 dimes. The Roosevelt dime series is gaining recognition as one of the most collectible modern series, with clear key dates and genuine rarities in high grades. The 1990 fits naturally into this collecting pattern. Additionally, as more collectors recognize the technical superiority of 1990 production, demand for high-grade examples will likely continue growing while the supply remains essentially fixed. The 1990 dime proves that exceptional collecting opportunities still exist in modern American coinage for collectors who take the time to understand what they're looking at. Between the lower mintages, superior technical quality, and growing collector recognition, these coins offer everything that serious numismatists value: genuine scarcity, historical significance, and outstanding long-term potential. Whether you're building a typeset, completing a Roosevelt dime collection, or simply looking for undervalued quality in today's market, the 1990 dime deserves serious consideration. It's not just another modern coin. It's a genuine collecting opportunity that combines the best aspects of numismatic value: rarity, quality, and growth potential all in one affordable package.